Oh boy, it's time for another episode of Second Cup. It's me, your host, Tim Heller. My guest on the show today is the one and only Ken Myers. Ken is a startup whiz, dungeon master, and most importantly, one of my oldest friends from way back when I used to live in Santa Barbara. Just a quick heads up, we do dive into Ken's experience living and thriving with bipolar disorder. So if that is a trigger for you, please just fast forward, save that part of the episode for later, and enjoy the rest of the nerdy stuff that we talk about. Top off your beverage, get comfy, and enjoy this episode of Second Cup.
How's it going?
Ken Myers, it's going well. How are you?
Doing great. It's so good to see you, man.
It is so good to see you, too. Thank you so much for waking up at the crack of ass to hang out for a little bit this morning.
Of course. I wouldn't miss this, man.
Oh, it is. I am just so excited. In your honor, I have my special Santa Barbara mug here that I got.
Good deal.
Cheers. I know you don't drink coffee, so what do you have?
I have Gatorade Zero.
Amazing.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Hydrating first thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, man. So, Ken, just catch me up on...
Yeah.
I know we've only got 20 minutes, which is so unfair.
Sure.
But I'd just love to know kind of what you've been up to. For everybody listening, this is... Ken Myers is one of my best friends from when we were both in kindergarten and elementary school together in Santa Barbara.
He was that unlucky. He was that unlucky to know me back then.
Uh-huh.
Don't judge me.
So, Ken, fill me in on, I know you went to UCLA for college, and you've had a lot going on since, and we've got a lot to dive into, but just catch me up between like college and kind of what you've been up to now.
Totally. So UCLA for college, as you mentioned. I did a handful of things there, but one of the main ones that I did was I worked in student government.
Okay.
I ran a party that elected people to the UCLA Student Government Association.
Sweet.
And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
For me, it was kind of a game. It was fun to be able to position people and train them to speak well, to answer questions well, to meet people and be friendly to them and get votes. And so my thought was, hey, I want to take that and go to U.S. politics. And so one of the people that I trained went and worked for a senator out in D.C., and I followed him not to work for the same senator, but to go out and just experience it.
Yeah.
And realized very quickly, it is not at all the same thing as UCLA politics. It is not what I wanted. I ran away as fast
What's different about it?
Oh, nothing at all. Nothing that you can imagine. It's less. I don't even want to go there, man. It's a weird environment right now. I'm going to stay as far away from that as I can.
I support that.
Yeah. It's just not what I expected.
Yeah.
I expected people that were looking to be involved and invested and trying to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And it felt much more corporate than that and much more controlled than that. Intense, backstabbing, all the things that you expect, it felt like to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are good people there, don't get me wrong, but I didn't find them.
No, this is just your experience, what you found there, and that's completely fair. And probably not wrong.
And so I ran away from that. And then my brother was beginning to build a company that I really enjoyed. It's a fraud detection company. I don't know if you're familiar, but when people apply for apartments, you're typically asked to submit either a bank statement or a pay stub to prove that you have enough money to be able to pay for the apartment. And about 12.5% of people lie on those documents. Make it seem like they earn more money than they actually do. And that leads to bad debt. It leads to people not being able to pay for their apartment that they rented. And so it's bad money for the people who are renting that apartment. And it causes chaos down the line. And so my brother and two of his friends started a company to be able to catch that and be able to prevent people coming in who cannot pay for the apartments. And so I got to be the first person to be able to review and catch this person. John Smith is not able to pay for this apartment, but Jane Smith is. You should rent it to Jane Smith and not John.
Interesting. And is this with Hugh or Thomas?
With Hugh.
With Hugh. Awesome.
My eldest brother.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. So this is Snapped, right?
Yes, sir.
And y'all just wrapped your Series A funding.
It's exciting.
Congratulations. Can we share what y'all were able to raise? I mean, I guess it's out on the internet, but can you share with us what you plan to do with that Series A funding and what you were able to raise? Because it's pretty freaking sweet.
It's pretty exciting.
At least to me.
We raised $100 million, which is ridiculous. And the plan on that is to expand, right? We have about 10% of the U.S. market right now. The goal, as you might imagine, is to expand to more than 10%. Mm-hmm. And it's also trying to look internationally, potentially. And that's one of the jobs that I'm working on right now, is being able to see if we can review documents in a different language. My theory is yes. We have not proven that theory yet. And so I get to work on trying to find out, can we do that? So we're starting with like French Canadian documents to be able to see, can we review a document that's all in French, even though none of us speak French? Are we able to review that and say, yes, this Jane Smith in France is cheating. This John Smith in France is telling the truth.
Very cool.
I don't know if that's possible, but it's a fun door to be able to knock on.
Yeah, and I love that the theory is yes, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So are you using like an AI model to review these documents, or are you do you have lawyers and everybody that are going through them?
Currently, we have people. Down the line, the goal is to be able to build out AI, but we're not there currently.
Yeah, just to augment that human power.
Totally.
That is so cool. And so how does Snapped benefit both the landlord or the landowner and also the renters?
Great question. From the landlord perspective, it's relatively straightforward. We're preventing bad debt from them. We're preventing John Smith from not paying rent for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever it is, and having to be evicted because they're not paying rent. Right. So it's relatively easy sell to the landlords. It's like, look, we can help you get people out of the way for you and bring in good people who are going to pay their money. The way it helps rentees is the less bad debt there is, the theory, the expectation is the lower the rent overall will be. Because if you're having to raise it higher because John Smith's not going to pay money,
because you're covering for some of the yeah, exactly,
right. But if you can guarantee that all your John Smiths and all your Jane Smiths are going to pay, then you can lower it down a little bit and still make the same money that you would. Right, that's the theory.
That's great, especially with rent everywhere. I mean, so when we just moved from New York back to Austin 2 years ago, and New York has always been New York in terms of the market, and had its brief decline in rent prices during COVID, and now it's just going crazy. And here in Austin, it's freaking bonkers. Like, people are getting 70% increases on their rents.
Yeah.
And the housing market's crazy. I don't know how we were able to squeak into our place, but it's crazy. So that's a really timely, wonderful product that I really, really hope continues to grow well past 10%.
It's fun. It's exciting to be able to do all this. Right. And you've known me for forever.
Yeah.
I love catching people that are lying. It is one of my favorite things to do in the world. To make that an actual job is a dream come true.
I just picture little Ken being like, hey, you're not actually making $50K a year. That's illegal.
Exactly. And you got that's the illegal part. So correct. That's exactly how I would have done that 15, 20 years ago. And I still got a little bit now. It's fun.
It's just more refined.
It is.
That's awesome. Ken, one of my we shared so many core memories as kids.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ones that I still think about is in the Hope Elementary School in Santa Barbara. We did that Americana show. Do you remember this? And the final song was Coming to America.
Yes.
And I played Uncle Sam in this show, whatever bastardized version of Uncle Sam it was. And I just remember seeing you march up to the stage like, we're coming to America today. And just the most committed out of everybody. And I was thinking in my head, in my little third grade mind, fuck yeah, Ken, get it.
It was awesome. If you're going to do it big. That's the way you got to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Say it again for the people in the back.
If you're going to do it big.
Do it big. Yes, regardless of what it is, except for lying on your renter application, because otherwise,
no,
Ken
please
Myers
do that so I can catch you.
All right, folks, start lying. Ken's going to catch you. Tim Heller gets 10% commission on everybody that lies on their applications from this podcast with referral code Second Cup. So a couple of the other things that we had on the docket today, I'd love to talk about bipolar.
Yes.
And I so appreciate you being open to talking about this, because this is something that actually on both sides of my family we have experience with, and people who are have been diagnosed and figuring out how to navigate this. So I'd love to hear your perspective on this and your experience.
Totally. Bipolar is a real thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And it's something that for me manifested about 5-ish years ago. And for me, the main side that I deal with is on the depressive side. I get manic too, but I deal much more with the downside. And it manifests in a way that I lose control. I'll be doing fine the first day, and then I'll get a little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit down, and then I cannot move. I get to the place where I'm just in my bed doing nothing, just with the thoughts of, I don't belong here. No one likes me. I'm not in a place where I can do anything worthwhile. I don't trust myself to do anything worthwhile. And why am I doing this? Why am I still here? I thought I was better than this. 6 months ago, I thought I was going to make things that were better. A year ago, I was going to do better than this. 2 years ago, I was going to do better than this. And it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. Right. And then you get memories of, hey, I was better in college. I was better in high school. I was better in elementary school at that play that Tim is talking about. Right. And at least, I won't speak for others. For me, I get locked in that mindset of, I'm not as good as I used to be, and I'm not going to get back there.
And that cyclical thinking just continues. Is there anything that triggers it? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I'm sorry for interrupting. You were talking.
No. I interrupted you on accident. It's all part of the wonders of talking through the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything that you've noticed that triggers these thoughts, and also on the other end that really helps you start to slowly climb out?
Yeah, I'll get into both. On the depressive side, one of the main things that triggers that for me is trying and failing, right? When I fail on something, it's I don't deserve this. I'm not ever going to be able to get this, right? And so I'll speak about mania a little bit here as well. When I get manic, it's that I'm going to fix every problem I've ever had today, right now, in the next hour. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to put my head down and make it happen, make it work, right? And you get into the place where you're working very hard and you're achieving some things, but you get locked into what you're doing right now, and I can't break out of that. And then when I fail at solving the world hunger, for example, it's like, well, I don't deserve anything. I can't do this. Why am I even here? Right. And if you fall fast into the, I can't do this, I can't do anything, I'm not as good as I was 5 years ago, I'm not as good as I was 15 years ago, whatever the case might be, and you get sucked in. How do I get out of it was your other question. It's a good question. One of the main things that I try to do is do distractions. Find something that pulls my mind out of that gutter and gets me away from all the bad thoughts that are just cycling around the drain. Right. And so I have a great playlist that I do my very best to never listen to unless I'm there. Right. Because I don't want to distract myself from what the playlist purpose is. Right. Yeah. So I have the depression playlist saved on Spotify. It's an amazing playlist. I'll share it with you.
Have you finished watching Stranger Things?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is for everybody listening who has watched Stranger Things. This is like a Vecna playlist, and which also leads into our D&D discussion that we're going to have in just a moment.
Kidding.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so
yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
I want that playlist.
And I'll send it to you, right? And that's an awesome, I should probably rename it to Vecna playlist because I love Vecna and D&D overall. But separate from that, it gets me to a place where it just breaks my mind from where I am, right? And so I have that. I have not D&D videos, YouTube videos, that's the name, that I save that are just fun, thoughtless, mind distractions to get away from the cage that I put myself in. That's the main part of it. And now that I'm healthier, I've got better meds. I've got good routines. I go for walks. Imagine that. Exercise helps.
I know. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? And I have friends, right? And relying on people that know you for who you are and are not locked in that same mind prison that you are is very, very helpful because I can pull you out of that and say, Ken, get your head on straight. You're fine. You're a good person. You're totally fine, right? And it helps
you can solve world hunger tomorrow.
Exactly. But then when I don't, I fall back.
No.
No, I'm kidding. Right. And I'm obviously exaggerating with world hunger. That's not how it gets.
Right.
But you get the idea that you're going to solve all of your problems that you have on your plate. You're going to solve them in the next hour. I'm being serious on that. That is how I get.
Yeah.
And when that fails, I fall into depression. Right. And so it's how do you balance I'm not going to solve them in the next hour. I'm going to put a list together in the next 30 minutes about when I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do this. I'm going to get good music going on in the background to distract my mind. I'm going to think about what it's going to be when I do finish these things and how exciting that'll be. I'll put myself in the mindset of I've done this. Isn't that fun? Can't we get there? Take your time to make that happen because it's going to be worth it when you do.
Yeah. Wow, Ken. I seriously, I so appreciate you being vulnerable enough to talk about this because I feel like it's like with so many different things nowadays, I feel like it's becoming increasingly less and less taboo to talk about things like me with my sobriety and people struggling with other addictions or mental health or masculinity in general or sexuality, whatever it is. And so it's conversations like this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast is because I feel like I know so many incredible people who are doing incredible things, but are also navigating some pretty intense obstacles in their life and doing it successfully. And I feel like the more that we can share about all of these little struggles or whatever we want to call them, the better it is for everybody. And that's, even if one person listens to this and is like, oh, you know what, I should listen to Ken's playlist on Spotify and see if that'll help me come out of a depressive state.
And kudos to you, right? This is a great thing for you to do for anyone who's listening, and for just in general putting it out into the airwaves, right? Because everyone deals with something, right? You might not have issues with sobriety, you might not have issues with bipolar, but you're dealing with something, right? And you can find anything that helps you get out of that headspace will be useful for you.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe it's something that I'm saying, maybe it's something that Tim is saying with his other great people that he has on his podcast, right? But you find some way to get yourself into a better, healthier place.
Yeah, truly. Now, the fun stuff.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your DMing for people who don't know what that is. That's
of course
Dungeon Master, right? Dungeon Mastering, and then
Dungeon Master, yes, sir.
And then in D&D. And this is something that I will have to preface. I have been offered to play several times, and I really, really want to play, but I have just never had the time or made the time to do so. And so I just want to level the playing field there. But I am so all about D&D and can't wait to hear your experience on it.
Absolutely. Offer is still on the table. Whenever you want to make that work, let me know. I'm on board.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So D&D, for those of you who don't know, the way I describe it to new people is that you're writing a book with your friends. And it's super fun to do it that way. So one person, the Dungeon Master, so in this case me, creates the world and creates the problems that exist. I'll give you an example with my current campaign. Brunch Club, if you're watching, stop listening. That's my party. Like, they cannot listen to this. But so in my world, in D&D in general, there's what's called the multiverse. There's essentially the Earth plane, which is called the material plane. And there's a plane of fire, plane of ice, plane of lightning, things like that. There's the Feywild, which is basically the elves and the fairies and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And different planes like this. What I'm doing is I'm having the main villain, which in D&D is called the Big Bad Evil Guy, or the BBEG, which I think is hilarious.
BBEG?
Right? BBEG. That's like that's a D&D term. I did not make that up. That's a D&D term. So I'm having the BBEG be a gigantic worm called the Worm That Walks. It's like the size of a skyscraper, and it just is very chaotic and aberrant. It's called an aberration. And it's trying to collapse the planes. It does not like that there are 17, 50, 100 different planes out there. It wants one that it has control over. And so it's doing what it can do to break down the plane of ice, which it has already done. It's successfully broken the plane of ice already, and using that to empower its own minions, to make them stronger, to make them icicles, to make them have the ability to freeze things, and do that for plane by plane by plane by plane, and make it into his power and his control. Now, how does he do that? This is where I'm going to be a little bit more secretive, because if my people are watching, I don't want to give them clues.
Yeah. But we don't want to do any spoilers.
Exactly. He has the ability to find the ley lines of the planes, which is something that I'm building and creating for my universe, for my world, that powers the locations, right? So he's finding the ley line to Earth, as an example, right? And he's doing what he can to unhook that, right? Unhook it and rehook it somewhere else into his ability to his own plane, right? And then he says, okay, Earth is now going this direction. I can put my worms and my minions into this area and infest the location and make it fold in on itself. Right, and make them stronger, give them more powers, have them feed off of what they find, and give it all to me, and collapse everything in on one location. That's the high-level story of what I'm going with this arc.
Okay, and so you, and just for people who aren't familiar with D&D, you have written this story as the Dungeon Master. And so take us through kind of, I'd love to hear your history with the game, and also if there is any tie-in to the mental health aspect, and just how creativity and how this really feeds into how this game can really positively affect other aspects of your life.
Great questions. So yes to both questions that you've asked so far. This is the second campaign I've done with that same core group. It's a group of 6 of my best friends that
Awesome.
I've played with for about 5 years. The first campaign I did was around the Hells. In D&D, the 9 Hells is one of the main planes. It's, as you can imagine, a relatively evil plane. It's split between devils, which are lawful evil. So they're the people wearing suits and ties and being very matter of fact about being very, very dickish. And then
That's
demons,
the official term, right? Dickish?
Official term, absolutely. And then demons are the chaotic version of that. They're the ones that seem maybe nice and then backstab you down the line, or just chaotically evil. So they're doing evil just for the fun of doing evil. There's no purpose to it. It's just enjoyable to them and whatnot. And typically in D&D, devils and demons hate each other. They hate humans, certainly, but they hate each other more. Because you're not doing evil the right way. You're not doing evil the right way, and so forth. In my last campaign, I said, what if they were on the same team? What if they worked together to screw the humans and screw the rest of the races? Because they got over their hatred for each other and brought their evil to the forefront and dominated that direction. And so that was my whole campaign, was the Hells becoming strong and united and causing chaos for everywhere else in the world. And that was super fun. And that was a 3.5-year campaign. Yeah. We did.
And people thought cricket was a long game.
No kidding. We did 50 sessions over 3.5 years, about 3 to 4 hours each. So you can do the math on how much time we put on that. It was amazing. And we finished in person last September. So we relatively recently finished. We had a great time.
So when did you begin this? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
When did you begin this, the Worm campaign?
Yeah. We started that in August of last year. So right before the old campaign finished. So it's been a little bit under a year. I think the 1 year anniversary is coming up very soon for the Worm campaign. But the old campaign was 3.5 years. One of our players moved to the Czech Republic because his fiance lives out there, and he loves it out there, which is amazing. But that means that all of our games are online, which you can do with D&D. You can do it over Zoom and over things like this, which is fun, but it's not the same as doing it in person.
Yeah.
And so he flew back in September for us to be able to finish the campaign because it's important to all of us.
Wow.
And he had a great time coming back, and we had an amazing final finale. But that's why we started the Worm campaign before, because we didn't want to wait that long without playing D&D. But we had to finish the last one in person.
Copy that. Wow, Ken.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome. I mean, it's so cool, and it really is a time investment. And I think that's why, personally, I've been nervous, is because I'm like, I want to, but I think recently with just how work and life has been, I'm like, I want to do this, but if I'm going to do it, I want to be able to like commit hard to this and really get invested. And I also am, that's scary to start new things with the learning curve and being shitty at it to begin with. But let me give you the
hard sell real fast.
Fast. Go.
Number one, I'm not expecting you to do a 50 session campaign over 3.5 years. Don't worry. What we can do is we can do what's called a one-off, which is a single game. We play for 3 to 4 hours. You can commit 3 to 4 hours. You can do this. And in terms of learning curve, everybody's learning. Everyone is relatively new to this. And so there's no issue with you being new. That's fun, right? You're writing a book. Do you have to be a professional writer to write a book? No, you don't. You write some words on a piece of paper, right? I ask you a question, you give me an answer. If your answer is wrong, that's kind of fun, because then things go against you, and that's cool to see things fall apart. How do you react to things falling apart?
Yep.
A. B, you do it with other people too. You're not going to be the only one that's here. Maybe you invite some of your friends. Maybe some of your listeners to this to get inspired and want to come and play a game with you, with the famous Tim Heller, and they'll be able to join you, right? And so you get to do it together and get to pick John's brain and Jane's brain. And you all see collectively, how are we going to solve this issue that Ken's presenting to us, or whoever your DM is presenting to us. And that's cool to be able to do things collectively and communally with people around you, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, sold. Done.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Ken, this has been just like the biggest gift I could ever receive. I really am so grateful that you reached out and have been so open, and it's so good to see your face. And
I agree, man. It's been great.
I know that I'll be reaching out to you very soon to just like catch up, a proper catch up with life and everything. Two things before we wrap up the interview. Where can people find you on social media, or find Snapped, or find more information about your campaign that you're doing if you guys are publicizing anything?
So I'm going to be that boring guest and say I'm not really on social media very much.
That's great.
I have a Facebook, but I don't particularly use it.
Okay.
I have a Twitter, and I only use it to stock things, not post things.
Amazing.
I, for my own mental health, am better staying away from that kind of stuff, personally.
I absolutely support that.
Yeah. So I'm that boring guest. In terms of Snapped is much more a business to business kind of thing. And so it's not really posting things to consumers.
Yeah.
So people are welcome to follow us on Twitter at Snapped, or follow online to be able to notice what we do. You're welcome to. I think it's kind of boring if you're not really in the industry.
Into prop tech. Whew.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Right. There you go. And Snapped is spelled Snappt. It's a little bit awkward, but it works. It's the name of the company.
Love it.
So yeah, again, if you want to follow, you're welcome to, but don't expect scintillating stuff necessarily.
Totally fair. Now, the last thing, I have quick fire questions.
Yes,
this is just, and you have one of the fastest brains that I've ever met, and continued, out of all the people I've met in my life, Ken Myers is still the number one smartest.
You're very kind.
All right. So just real quick, 1 or 2 word answers, whatever comes to your mind first. What's a nickname your parents used to call you?
Scout.
Scout. Early bird or a night owl?
Night owl for sure.
Who inspires you right now?
Hugh Myers, my brother.
And you can only have pizza one more time. Where from? What's on it?
Geno's, pepperoni, pineapple.
Boom. Oh my God. You saying pepperoni pineapple is bringing back some major core memories from Santa Barbara. Oh my gosh. And I know, like, all my pizza loyalists out there will say, like, really, like, you can't put pineapple on a pizza. And it's like, you know what? You can put whatever you want on a pizza, as long as it's a deep dish pizza. Ken, thank you again. Cheers to you, and best of luck with everything with Snapped and your new campaign. It's crazy exciting. And I really, really look forward to the next time we get to sit down and talk.
Tim, this is a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Second Cup featuring my good friend Ken Myers. Hope you've fallen in love with him as much as I have over the past 30 years. As he said, he's really not on social media at all. So if you'd like to find out more about what he's doing with Snapped, I've got the website in the description of this episode, or you can just Google SNAPPT and you will find it. Also linked in the description of this episode is Ken's Spotify playlist that we talked about called Smile. Ken says it's named Smile because these are the songs that make me smile even when that seems unlikely. So hopefully it does the same for all of you. This show is recorded and produced by Tim Heller Creative, LLC. If you're a small or large business and would like to sponsor the show, reach out to Tim at timhellercreative.com and we can have a little chat, see if we're a good fit. Tune in next time for another incredible conversation and to learn something cool from a really awesome person.